Okay, hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and are you guys ready for a double dose of My Hero Academia review? Finals week. I have not slept very well in the past 4 days. I was gonna do this double review last night, but you know, shit happened. What are you gonna do? Okay, so these two chapters, chapter 117 and 118, focus on the epic brawl, the culmination. We have Deku and Kacchan. We have Izuku and Bakugo brawling it out finally, and this is kind of like a no bullshit kind of fight. This isn't like, you know, like they're the few interactions that they've had before, like I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, and Deku's like no, and or the battle test arc where it was like, you know, kind of like moderated by All Might. It was kind of in this controlled environment where if All Might really wanted to, he could shut it down. No, this is just a straight up fight between the two, and I really love this fight. I really do, because of the character development involved on Bakugo's side. I gotta be honest with you, when I started reading My Hero Academia, I did not care for Bakugo very much. I viewed him a lot as the stereotypical hot-headed teenager that, you know, solves all of his problems with his fists, or in Bakugo's case, by literally blowing them fuck up, yelling at people all the time, you know, not, you know, that's his personality, that's who his character is. And after the events in Camino, when he was kind of like quiet and reserved, you know, I gotta be honest too, I gave him the view of like, oh, he must be upset because after the events in Camino, he must be like lamenting his own powerlessness, that he couldn't do anything. That's not it at all, and I love the way that this twisted around. It actually made him seem much more of like a lively character. So let's get into it. So chapter 117 focuses mostly on the dialogue between Bakugo and Izuku. Bakugo calls Izuku out of the dorms, and he brings him over to the training ground Beta. That's the area where they did the battle test arc at the beginning of the series. And they you know, they're just going, you know, they're saying the thing that we all figured that was going to happen. Bakugo is aware that All Might passed on his quirk to Izuku. Now, of course, he doesn't know anything about the full meaning of One for All or anything like that, but, you know, Bakugo is a fairly intelligent kid. He doesn't come off that way, but, you know, to get into UA to begin with, I mean, you have to have more than just like, I'm a musclehead that likes to blow shit up, you know, like, you have to have a little bit of intelligence. He's not the sharpest knife in the crayon box. He's not like on freaking Todoroki or Ida's level, but, you know, he remembers the time that Deku told him at the beginning of the school year, like, I got this power from somebody else. You know, originally Bakugo just thought he was, you know, fucking with him, but, you know, he remembers that. And then in Camino, it kind of queued him up when he met All for One, and you had a guy that was, like, stealing other people's quirks, like he stole Ragdoll's quirk from the Pussycats, and then he was incorporating all that stuff into him. He was remotely activating people's quirks with the magnet guy. He remotely activated his quirk and shit. So Bakugo had all the pieces of the puzzle he needed. He figured out, and then after All Might, of course, loses his power, loses his quirk, and he did that, you know, you're next, you know, that epic point in the distance, you know, Bakugo's like, Deku, you interpret that completely differently than everybody else. So he came to the conclusion that that's what happened. And it's not like Bakugo is pissed at Izuku because of like, you know, oh, well, you know, All Might gave you your powers, but you're a worthless piece of shit, so I should be the one to get his power. It's nothing like that. It's no stupid shit like that. He actually takes a look into himself, and he remembers the past with himself and Izuku, because remember, Izuku was kind of like the nerdy kid that always hangs around with the kids that bully him, just because really there's no one else. Like, that was me when I was a kid. I hung out with a bunch of kids that made fun of me constantly and beat me up a few times, but it was just like, that's, you know, what I do. I'm in elementary school. They're the only people that will hang out with me, though, so I guess that's what we'll do. That was Izuku to Bakugo and his group. And they both aspired to be All Might, to be like All Might, to be a hero like him, and that was, you know, their hero growing up. And he looks at it, he looks inward on himself, Bakugo does, and he says to himself, you know, what was so different about your aspirations, Deku, that All Might would entrust all of his power to you? Were my aspirations wrong in that sense? Bakugo is not a bad guy. It's just that he's very hot-headed, which makes sense, not just because of his quirk, but also because he's a teenager. And that's one thing I think that in these two chapters, I think the mangaka really gets. You know, teenagers are like the embodiment of not making rational sense sometimes. They don't know what they want, but they know that they want it. That kind of stuff. So there's shit that they do, and there's shit that happens that it might not make a lot of sense even to them, but then you have these little moments of clarity where they mature and they finally realize, they learn from not just the mistakes, but they look about like what happened in their life, they look in their past, and you have these moments of clarity where it's like, what the fuck am I even doing? You know, I think we've all had those moments at some point in our lives, and Bakugo comes to that conclusion of clarity, and he wants to confront Izuku not for any selfish reason, not because of like, you know, like, you lied to me, you dick, or, you know, why did All Might didn't give me his powers, or anything stupid like that. He's confronting Deku because he wants to see how far he's grown and to maybe reevaluate the relationship between him and Deku. You know, because Bakugo always had the viewpoint of, Deku's always so beneath me, I don't need to worry about him, he's just an insignificant little gnat. And now that he's been getting now that after he got a quirk, he's been getting to catch up to Bakugo. And Bakugo rejected that at first. He's like, no, there's no way I'm letting a little fucking gnat like Deku pass me up. This is fucking absurd. This is ridiculous. You know, I am better than him. Now he's starting to realize, am I? Am I really? Our hero, All Might, entrusted his power to him. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking of him as just an insignificant little, you know, dust mite anymore. Maybe I should start to see really what he's made of, why All Might would give him his powers. And so they're still fighting. It's still going down. He's still striking the crazy-ass expressions and shit. But, yeah, that's basically the reasoning before him, why he's fighting, and that's how Chapter 117 ends. Chapter 118, the one that was released this week, focuses primarily on the fight, and it's relatively quick, although I want to mention one thing as sort of a buffer before we get into the actual fight, because if I don't mention it now, I'm just going to forget. But remember, UA is, you know, highly secure. I mean, it's got a lot of security and shit, you know, considering what just happened, you know, recently, and the whole reason they moved the dorms to the campus is so that the students would be more secure. So there are these little security robots patrolling the campus after hours, and one of them sees that, you know, Bakugo and Deku are out after curfew in the grounds of the testing grounds, and so it alerts, you know, Aizawa, Eraserhead, like, hey, your students are out past curfew, I think you need to go and deal with this. And he's leaving his office to go deal with it, and he's stopped by a shadowy figure. Who could it be? I don't know. Although, I will say that that's how Chapter 118 began, and Chapter 117 ended with an image of All Might, just kind of there, you know, for no reason. So I don't know if that's All Might, or if it's somebody else. I really don't know, so leave some comments below. So, you know, the fight gets off, and the reason that Bakugo, that he was feeling down in the dumps after Camino, and the reason that happened with, you know, why he felt so out of it after he lost the provisional license exam after he failed that, it wasn't because he cursed his own powerlessness or that shit like that. It was because he views himself as the reason that All Might ended. That shit hits home right there. I love that shit right there, because you could have so easily fucked that up. You could have easily fucked that up. It could have just been a typical shonen thing, you know? Like, I just gotta get stronger and shit like that. No, but you actually looked at it like, wait a second, I got kidnapped by the villains, All Might came to my rescue, and he ended up getting in this fight. Oh my god, was I the reason that... Because this is a guy that him and Deku both, like, worshipped as children. Think of your childhood hero for a second. Maybe it was an actor, maybe it was a musician. Let's just use musician, I guess. Let's just use musician, you know? And you later on find out that musician is retiring unexpectedly, and that the musician's like, oh yeah, it's because of this kid in some weird part of the world that I'm doing that. I mean, that would crush you, wouldn't it? Now, obviously, All Might didn't exactly say, you know, oh, it was because of Bakugo, but that's how he views it. He was in the middle of all this shit. He's the reason why the raid happened. He's the reason why All Might confronted All for One. He's the reason all this shit went down, and he's the reason that All Might had to retire. At least from his perspective. I mean, I don't want to say he really is the reason. It wouldn't have mattered which student got kidnapped. It wouldn't have mattered in that point. They would have done the hideout raid regardless. But I can understand why he would be the reason why All Might had to retire. So that's what was really beating on him, you know, and he didn't know how to express those feelings because he's not that kind of guy. He usually just explodes whenever he has an emotion, but in this situation, he couldn't do that. He just had to kind of bottle all this shit in until now, where we get to the epic fight here. I'm sorry about that. We get to the epic fight here between the two, and yeah, so not much really else to say in the recent chapter. It was mostly a fight, a little bit more of the flashback on Deku and Bakugo, you know, and you know, their aspirations to become like All Might and shit like that. Finally, the chapter ends, though, with Deku was on the defensive for most of this fight, just kind of deflecting Bakugo's hits, trying to dodge him. He got a few, you know, hits out on him or shit like that, but nothing really that bad, and Deku was obviously not wanting to fight him here. And he's like, no, no, Kacchan, you know, your aspirations weren't wrong or anything like that. There's nothing really that he's going to do at this point. You know, Bakugo needs to see for himself the man that Deku has become. I hope this is a step forward in their friendship. I hope that after this encounter, after this fight, which Deku does take seriously at the end of the battle, he, you know, strikes the epic fighting pose, like, all right, this is the way this is going down. This is what's going to happen. This is what he needs, and I have to do him a service. For, you know, I in this situation, I have to kind of give him what he wants. And so, you know, Deku strikes, you know, the epic fighting pose here. Bam. And that's how the chapter ends there. So hopefully we'll get a pretty kick-ass chapter next week of a straight-up balls-out fight between the two, demonstrating their different abilities and the shit they've learned, that they've incorporated in their training and also in the provisional license exam. And like I said, I hope that after this whole thing is over and done with, that maybe their relationship's not going to be like, hey, we're best friends now, but it's going to be a little bit better. Maybe Bakugo might stop calling him Deku, or he might, you know, stop using it like it, because Deku means like worthless, and maybe he might keep using it in the same sense that he uses for his hero name, or Ochako calls him, or something like that. But I certainly think this is going to be an intense fight, and it made it very clear that, you know, this isn't going to be interrupted. This isn't going to be a little scuffle that's going to be interrupted by like Aizawa showing up or something like that. This is something that needs to happen. They need to vent their emotions. They need to get this shit out there, and they need to move on, because I think the things on the horizon are going to be a lot bigger than anything they could handle if they're dealing with this stuff separately. They need to start working together, and if Bakugo and Deku start working together, it would be a fucking crackerjack duo. I love that word, crackerjack. Don't get to use that too often. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the chapters. Sorry for the haphazard fucking scrap-built review here. This is the first time I've ever done a double review. But considering that these two chapters work so well together, and considering that it's a fight, you know, I think in this situation it works. I can incorporate both reviews into one video without it being like, you know, last chapter was all about the villains. This chapter's about Bakugo and Deku. It might be kind of hard to work those two in together in a double review, but I hope it worked out okay. You know, I gotta get to it. I got other shit I need to do, guys. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Till next time.